What makes the government think it's okay to take this away from me?
How dare you!
Hello everyone, you lot keep on liking these rant videos, so you've only got yourself to blame. So what am I going to rant about today? Well, it's about our right to buy internal combustion engine motorcycles. Now, what I find is that there's an awful lot of people out there who, although we all know that we want to be riding these internal combustion engine motorcycles, we all feel a little bit guilty about saying it. And that's what really gets my goat. Why should we feel guilty about the fact that we want to continue riding our internal combustion engine motorcycles? Clearly we need to make logical arguments for the things that we want to do. We can't just say this is what we want and sod you. Well, we could say that, I suppose, but when it comes to speaking to policymakers, we have to be a little bit more articulate in how we do it. So yes, I do a lot of background reading, and I've come across this book, The Master and His Emissary, by a chap called Ian McGillchrist. And I think it actually adds an awful lot to our argument. So what I'm going to do in this video is just talk you through what's going on and how this man would understand the arguments that we're making, because I think he would agree with us. So who is this Ian McGillchrist, and how does his arguments fit into what we're talking about here? So Dr. Ian McGillchrist is an intelligent man, Oxford trained, teaches at Oxford, Oxford professor, who's done an awful lot of work into how the brain works. And he talks about the left and right hemispheres of the brains and the impact they have on how we think and what we do. Now, when we talk here about left and right, we're not talking politically, so don't run away with that idea, don't try and put words in my mouth. We're talking about how we think, not how we vote here. So our choice to ride internal combustion engine machines isn't entirely logical in some respects, you could argue. I've seen plenty of people making the arguments that electric bikes are a lot simpler and easier and more efficient and all these things, but frankly, so what? We know, I know, and I'm pretty sure most of you know, that riding a motorcycle is far more than getting from A to B in the most efficient manner, isn't it? That's why we love riding these machines. That's why we want to protect our right to continue doing so. So how do we square all this when it comes to making the arguments? So I think that what Ian McGillchrist is showing here is that motorcyclists understand that there's this balance between the left and right hemisphere thinking and how we approach things. And I actually subscribe to this very closely. When I read this book, it just rang bells for me. Everything seemed to fit and it made sense now. So there is no need for us to feel guilty about this joy, this love of these machines that we love riding. Ian McGillchrist has shown me the way to how we can actually make these arguments without a shred of guilt. So the left-hand hemisphere, the way it looks at the world, is very narrow. It is very much about what we want, going out, picking a target and going out and grasping it. And from an evolutionary point of view, it makes sense that that's the way the brain works. If you want to go hunting, you want to grab something from the environment around you, you need to be entirely focused on it to reach out. It's your left hemisphere that controls your right hand. Most of us are right-handed, and that's the hand that you would normally use to reach out to grasp something. So that left hemisphere thinking is very important. The right hemisphere looks at things beyond that single point of focus and looks at other things, and sort of like, say, from an evolutionary point of view, it's basically while you're chasing that prey, the right hemisphere is keeping an eye out for around you to make sure that you're not becoming the prey and somebody's actually hunting you. And this is what happens, I think, with motorcyclists' minds, is that we're taking that right hemisphere approach to life and saying, well, hang on a minute, I can understand why you want to achieve that, that's your goal, why you're very focused on it, but look at what it is that you're throwing away in the process. And you've got no right to take it away from us just because you've got this single-minded focus on one thing, which is zero tailpipe emissions. Now, obviously, zero tailpipe emissions means zero tailpipe. Zero tailpipe means zero internal combustion engines. There is no way around it. There is no other solution. The only thing with zero tailpipe is zero internal combustion engine. So what McGillchrist is saying is that the left hemisphere is grasping for this in this very systems approached, very cold, uncaring, unthinking way of grasping the goal that it wants to achieve. Now the reality is the right hemisphere thinking side of us can see that there's other ways of achieving exactly the same goal if we choose to go down that route. Because we have a goal doesn't mean that there's only one route to get there. Now, as we all know, the practical side of going electric when it comes to motorcycles has got its problems. We know for a fact that electric motorcycles, they're more expensive. Obviously, batteries, great if you can get them to work, but they're quite heavy. That causes problems with range. The density of energy that's included in the battery is not the same as the density of energy that's included in the fuel that you use in your fuel tank and burn in your internal combustion engine. So there's drawbacks with these electric bikes. And we know that these drawbacks exist, and we know that the motorcycle industry have been struggling with this. But just take a look at what the chap from Triumph had to say about the future of electric motorcycles.
Indeed, to create an EV equivalent to our much-loved Speed Triple, the retail price would need to be double, and the usable range would be half. Now, put simply, we can't meet customers' expectations with EV technology, certainly not in the foreseeable future. And even by 2035, the technology would still be 25% more expensive than an ICE engine, and it would still only deliver 50% of the real-world range.
So the practicalities of electric motorcycles, there's problems with them. Yes, we can make the arguments that it may improve over time, but that's not the whole story, is it? The reason why we like riding these machines is because it's a visceral experience. The amount of time that we spend in the shed, you know, I'm with Henry Cole here, the time that we spend in the shed tinkering with these things, swearing at that bolt that won't come off, coaxing it back into life when it's been off the road for a while. That's part of the fun of it, that's part of the thrill of it, that's part of the experience. And that's not something that you get with an electric motorcycle. There is plenty of evidence that shows that working with your hands, that tactile contact with the world around you, is an important part of life. And it is not something that we should be throwing away lightly. So yes, McGillchrist in his book, he explains that the right hemisphere loves this craft, this working with things, this real world contact. It's not about just achieving that single goal of getting the most efficient way of getting from A to B. There's so much more to it. And there is therefore so much more that we are throwing away unnecessarily if we try to stop people doing what it is that we love doing. We have every right to be doing this, and the government shouldn't be telling us that we can't. Now, anybody who knows me reasonably well will know that I have this saying where I say I'm absolutely opposed to absolutism. And this again ties into this left hemisphere idea, isn't it? It's like that's the absolutist approach, is you've got that one target, that's what you're going to achieve. I won't accept any arguments. And if we look at the sort of like the electrification argument over the period of time, I mean, originally for cars, for example, it started off that the suggestion was that they would end the sale of petrol and diesel cars by 2040. And Boris Johnson comes along and he does a consultation, asks everybody their opinion on whether or not we could bring that date forward to 2035. And instead of people sort of like saying, no, we can't do that, the actual result of that consultation was that he set the date for 2030. So even earlier than the date that he was consulting on. Now, okay, Rishi Sunak came along and he pushed that date back to 2035 to align with what was going on in the EU. But of course, then we get Keir Starmer coming. He pushes the date straight forward back to 2030 again. ZEV mandate, that they've found out that isn't working particularly well. And even now, the government is wobbling on that. We don't really understand what it is that they're trying to achieve anymore. They're saying they're not pushing the dates back, but equally, they're saying, well, not all cars have to be petrol or have to be electric by 2030 anymore. So what are they really talking about? It's confused, and this is a part of the problem with the left hemisphere way of thinking. They've got a goal, they won't take a step back, they won't look at what all the alternatives are, and this is what is forcing us unnecessarily down this route. Now, if they apply this kind of thinking to the motorcycle industry, I think we all know where we're headed, aren't we? We're going to be stuck with a load of machines that don't meet our need, don't fill our desire for motorcycling, and basically is going to ruin motorcycling in the UK. We can't allow this to happen, and we should feel no remorse or no concern about the fact that we're making this argument. I think motorcyclists who are pretty much right hemisphere dominated in their thinking, they don't see this as a problem. There can be different ways of enjoying motorcycling, whether it's, you know, an off-road bike, a tourer, or an adventure bike. We're all seen as part of the same thing. The overall collective is the same. We all support each other's choices and we all want to see motorcycling continue. We don't point fingers and say, oh, you're doing it wrong, you shouldn't be doing that. And I think that's an important part of how our mindset works. As motorcyclists, we are probably slightly more right hemisphere dominated than we are left hemisphere dominated. And I don't think that's a bad thing. There needs to be balance. Yes, I understand that. McGillchrist would agree with that. But there's no need for us to go entirely left hemisphere thinking on this subject. I'm pretty confident that I'm right when I say here that the majority of people actually want to carry on with these internal combustion engine motorcycles. We know from our survey, as MAG, we carried out surveys that showed at least 9 out of every 10 motorcyclists want to stick with internal combustion engines. And let's face it, the sales figures kind of back this up, don't they? And if the government decides to slap some kind of ZEV mandate on motorcycling, it's going to basically mean there's no more motorcycling in any meaningful form. We can't allow that to happen, and we shouldn't allow the government to force this through. So I'm not prepared to stand for this, and I'm going to go all left hemisphere on you. I think this is where we need to actually get left hemisphere. We need to plug into that side of our thinking and say, right, our goal is that we're not going to accept this. We've got to campaign for it, we've got to push for it, and we're not going to accept any arguments to the contrary. That's how they operate. Why shouldn't we? We've got our goal, we know what we want, it's a perfectly reasonable goal. That's the way the world works. We're part of this environment. We get to have rights. We've got choices that we want to make. I'm not prepared to accept it. I'm going to do everything I can in a very left hemisphere way. I've got my goal. My goal is to resist this to the death, to the end. No questions, no compromise, not accepting any of it. That's how the left hemisphere thinks. That's what they're doing. They've got their goal. They want to stop us using these machines. We want to carry on using these machines. I'm not feeling guilty about making that argument, and neither should you. So what makes the government think it's got the right to take away this experience from me? This is what life is all about for me. The government has no right to take this from me, and I'm not just going to stand by and let them do it. And frankly, neither should you. I'm fed up with, I've had enough of your left hemisphere thinking. It's time to apply a little bit of right hemisphere. It's time to allow motorcyclists to continue riding their internal combustion engines without any fear of that right being taken away. This is what makes life for us. This is what keeps it real. There's no need to take this away from us. You've got no right to take this away from us, and we're not going to let you. So if you're anything like me, you love riding your motorcycle, you're invested in the full experience, everything that motorcycling provides for you in your life, and you don't want to lose it, please join MAG. I'm going to be doing a more in-depth analysis of what Ian McGillchrist has to say in his books, and that article is going to be appearing in the forthcoming edition of Open Road, the membership magazine. So if you're not already a member of MAG, please do join up quick to make sure you don't miss that article when it comes out.